This is the story of how the Dodge Hellcat almost never came to exist. That's right, the engine that set the muscle car scene on fire almost never existed. So it all started back in the early 2010s. This is when the race for horsepower and the muscle car scene was really starting to take off. I remember this like it was yesterday. In 2010, I was just a mere freshman in high school, and Ford, Chevy, and Dodge were coming out with cooler and faster cars every single year. Ford had the GT500 Mustang, Chevy had the ZL1 Camaro, and Dodge had the SRT8 Challenger. Out of the three of these, Dodge had the only naturally aspirated engine. So when the race for horsepower really started to kick off, it left Dodge in the dust. Here's some stats to back this up. From 2010 to 2014, the GT500 Mustang ranged from 540 to 662 horsepower. From 2012 to 2014, the ZL1 Camaro ranged from 540 to 580 horsepower. And from 2010 to 2014, the SRT8 Challenger ranged from 425 to 470 horsepower. I know what you're gonna say. Wait, but Dodge had the Viper. Of course, Dodge had the Viper, Ford had the GT, and Chevy had the Corvette. But I would put these cars in a subcategory above the Challenger, the Mustang, and the Camaro. Anyways, back into the story. Dodge's SRT engineers finally had enough. Year after year, they were getting beat by the GT500 and the ZL1. They came together and went to their bosses at Chrysler to present a new idea. The idea was for a 6.2-liter supercharged Hemi that could push 707 horsepower and 650 pounds of torque. And what did the bosses at Chrysler say? They said no shot. They wanted nothing to do with this engine or the car. They weren't sure how much it was going to cost to produce. They weren't sure what kind of recalls would come in the future. And honestly, they weren't sure who was going to buy this car. I know you're saying that's crazy. You would buy the car. I would buy the car. We all knew people would buy the car. But for Chrysler, they were unsure and they didn't want to spend the money on it. Dodge's SRT team did not give up though. For months and months and months, they argued with Chrysler over this project. Finally, Chrysler caved and they put the first Hellcat into production in 2015. In total, they made 1,334 Hellcats. And the result was an 11.2 second quarter-mile street-legal monster, going 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds and a top speed of 199 miles an hour. For 2015, this was absolutely earth-shattering news for the car community and put Dodge into the first place spot for the race for power. For the longest time, the Ford owners and the Chevy owners were making fun of Dodge owners. But after this, there was no going back. And this, my friends, is the story of how the Dodge Hellcat almost never existed. But thank God it does, and Mopar Nation, baby.